Hey there, folks. I'm Emily Harper, and trust me, I'm just as surprised as you are to be telling this story. A few months back, if you'd asked me about my future, I'd have grinned ear to ear and spun you a tale about the perfect wedding I'd been dreaming up for years. Picture it. A little chapel nestled in the hills, sunlight streaming through stained glass, and me walking down the aisle toward the guy I'd loved for half a decade. His name was Ryan, my Ryan. 5 years of late-night talks, road trips, and promises whispered under the stars. I thought we were solid, unbreakable. Turns out I was wrong. Dead wrong. It all started unraveling one quiet night at his place. We're sprawled on the couch, the TV humming in the background, and I muster up the courage to ask about our next step. You know, the where are we going with this talk? I wasn't nagging, just curious, hopeful. But Ryan? He goes stiff like I'd asked him to sign his life away. I'm not sure about marrying you, Em, he says, voice flat as a board. My stomach drops. 5 years and he's not sure? I blink at him, waiting for the punchline, but there isn't one. He just stares at the floor, leaving me dangling in this awful silence. I swallow hard, nod like it's no big deal, and tell myself we'll figure it out. That's what we do, right? We fix things. Then came the night that shattered everything. We're out with friends at this rundown bar. Sticky floors, neon lights, the kind of place where secrets spill over cheap beer. Someone cracks a joke about when we're getting hitched, and I smile, expecting Ryan to play along, to say something sweet. Instead, he leans back, smirks, and drops a bomb loud enough for everyone to hear. If she looked more like a model, I'd have married her ages ago. Laughter erupts, nervous, jagged laughter, but it's like a gunshot to my chest. My face burns, my hands tremble, and all I can think is 5 years and this is what you see? I wanted to vanish, to melt into the floor and never come back. The guy I'd built my world around just tore me apart in front of everyone. And I sat there stunned like a deer in headlights. But here's the thing. That wasn't the end. Oh no, it was just the spark that lit the fuse. I could have crumbled, let his words sink me, but something else kicked in. A flicker of fire I didn't know I had. So pull up a chair because I'm about to take you on a ride. This isn't some sob story about a broken heart. It's a long, wild journey about what happens when you stop running from the wreckage and start building something new. Trust me, you're gonna want to hear this. So there we were, me, Ryan, and Muffin, living our little slice of heaven in that cramped apartment. 4 years had flown by since that birthday party where I'd stumbled into his life with my terrible jokes. And now we were engaged, counting down to November. I'd spent months daydreaming about the wedding. The wildflowers I'd weave into my hair. The way Ryan's eyes would crinkle when he smiled at me across the altar. Muffin would be there too, probably stealing the show with his goofy grin. 5 years together and I thought we'd cracked the code. Love wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Turns out I was only seeing half the picture. It started small, the little things you brush off because you don't want to rock the boat. Ryan got quieter, more distracted. He'd come home from work, some construction gig he'd picked up after quitting the farm life, and just slump on the couch, scrolling his phone instead of talking to me. I'd ask about his day, and he'd grunt something vague like fine or tired. First, I figured it was stress. Jobs like his were rough, long hours, aching muscles. I'd try to lighten the mood, cracking jokes or dragging him out for walks with Muffin, but he'd just nod along, half there. I told myself it was a phase. We'd been through rough patches before. Like that time I'd lost my temper over his forgetting my birthday, or when he'd sulked for a week after I accidentally threw out his favorite, and hideous, old flannel. We always bounced back. Always. But then the silences got longer, heavier. One night, maybe 6 months after the proposal, I caught him staring at me over dinner. Spaghetti I'd burned a little because cooking's never been my thing. What? I asked, laughing nervously. He shook his head, muttered, nothing, and went back to twirling his fork. That look, though, it wasn't the warm, crinkly-eyed one I loved. It was distant, almost cold. My stomach twisted, but I shoved it down. He's just tired, I thought. He's still Ryan. My Ryan. Things kept shifting, subtle but steady. He started going out more with his buddies, Jake, Mike, the usual crew. I didn't mind at first. He deserved to blow off steam. But then it was every weekend, and he'd stumble in late, reeking of smoke and beer he swore he didn't drink. Just hung out at the bar, he'd say, avoiding my eyes. I'd ask to tag along sometimes, thinking it'd be fun, but he'd brush me off. Guy time, Em. You'd be bored. Bored? With him. That stung, but I let it slide. I didn't want to be the nagging fiancé, the one who couldn't give him space. So I stayed home with Muffin, watching dumb reality shows and wondering why I felt so alone in a life we'd built together. The Rail warning bell came about a month before everything blew up. We were at the park with Muffin, tossing a tennis ball he'd chased like his life depended on it. It was one of those crisp fall days. Leaves crunching underfoot, air sharp and cool. I was laughing, trying to wrestle the ball from Muffin's slobbery jaws when Ryan snapped, "Can you just chill for once?" I froze. Chill. I wasn't even being loud, just playing with our dog. What's your deal? I shot back, half joking, half confused. He sighed, rubbed his temples like I was some headache he couldn't shake. You're always on him. It's a lot. A lot? 5 years and now I was a lot? I swallowed the hurt, forced a smile and tossed the ball again. But inside I was spinning. Was this who he saw me as now? Too much? Not enough. I should have confronted him then, demanded answers. But I didn't. I kept pretending. Kept planning the wedding, kept loving him. Kept hoping he'd snap out of whatever this was. I'd flip through bridal magazines, circling dresses I couldn't afford, while he'd sit across the room, eyes glued to his phone. I'd ask his opinion, white or ivory, band or DJ. And he'd shrug. Whatever you want, Em. It wasn't the enthusiasm I'd expected from a guy who'd proposed. It was indifference. And it was eating me alive. Then came that night on the couch, the one I mentioned before. We're watching some dumb movie, Muffin snoring between us, and I decide to poke the bear. So, I say, casual as I can, when do you think we'll actually do this wedding thing for real? He stiffens just like before. I'm not sure about marrying you, Em. He says, voice flat, like he's reading a grocery list. My heart stops. What? I whisper, praying I heard wrong. He shifts, still not looking at me. I don't know. I'm not sure. 5 years, and he's not sure? I press him, my voice shaking. What's changed, Ryan? Talk to me. But he doesn't. He just shrugs, mumbles about needing time, and leaves me sitting there, staring at the TV screen like it's gonna fix this. I should have seen it then, the truth. He wasn't just unsure about the wedding. He was unsure about me. But I clung to hope, convinced we could work it out. I mean, we'd survived so much. Moving in together, adopting Muffin, building a life. This was just a bump, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. And then the bar. That night I told you about, the one that broke me open. We're out with his friends, the same crew he'd been ditching me for. I'm trying to keep up, laughing at their dumb jokes when Jake, drunk and loud, slurs. So Ryan wins the big day? I smile, waiting for Ryan to say something, anything to prove he's still in this. Instead, he leans back, smirks, and says it. If she looked more like a model, I'd have married her ages ago. The table erupts, laughter, clinking bottles, and I'm just gone. Hollowed out. 5 years of love, trust, stupid little moments like naming our dog Muffin, and he boils it down to that? My looks? My worth? I don't move. I can't. My hands grip my drink so tight I'm surprised the glass doesn't shatter. The laughter fades, but his words echo louder and louder, until they're all I hear. I want to scream, to throw something, to ask him who the hell he thinks he is. But I don't. I sit there, burning, breaking, while he takes another sip of his damn beer like it's nothing. Like I'm nothing. That's when it hits me. This isn't a bump. This isn't fixable. This is the end of us, or at least the us I thought we were. But it's not the end of me. Not even close. Something's waking up inside me. A spark, a fire. A refusal to let him define me. I don't know it yet, but that night's about to change everything. So hang on. The real story's just getting started. 3 months ago, that's when it really started getting weird. Ryan wasn't the same guy I'd fallen for at that birthday party. The one who'd laughed at my dumb jokes and held my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. He'd already been pulling away, sure, with his I'm not sure nonsense about the wedding, but I chalked it up to jitters. I mean, 5 years together, a ring on my finger, Muffin snoring between us every night. How do you walk away from that? So I kept pushing forward, planning, hoping, pretending everything was fine. But deep down I knew something was off. And it was about to get a whole lot worse. It hit me hardest with the wedding stuff. I'd always been the dreamer, the one scribbling ideas in notebooks and pinning photos on my secret Pinterest board. Wildflowers, fairy lights, a little rustic vibe for our November day. I'd show Ryan these things, bursting with excitement, like pictures of this stunning hotel I'd found online. Think polished wood floors, huge windows, the kind of place that screams, forever. What do you think? I'd ask, practically shoving my phone in his face. He'd barely look up from whatever he was scrolling. Probably some dumb meme Jake sent him and mutter, yeah, it's okay. Or, pick whatever you want, Em. Okay, whatever I want. This was supposed to be our day, not some solo project. Then one time I sent him a link to that hotel, all sparkly and perfect, and he hit me with, why waste money on something like this? Waste? I blinked at him, stunned. I figured he was just worried about cash. Construction jobs paid decent, but not that decent, so I let it slide. Okay, we'll keep it simple, I said, forcing a smile. But it wasn't about the money. I could feel it. Then there were the nights out. Ryan started hanging with his work buddies more, way more. He'd always had his crew, Jake, Mike, the usual loudmouths, but now it was constant. And there was this one guy, Luke, who kept popping up. Luke was new at the company, some slick-talking type who'd moved to town a few months back. Ryan would come home late, smelling like smoke and bar food, his eyes glazed over. Just drinks with the guys, he'd say, kicking off his boots. Luke was there, funny dude. First I didn't care. He deserved to unwind. But it went from once a week to every other night. He'd stumble in, barely grunt a hello, and collapse on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling like I wasn't even there. Muffin would nudge him for attention, and he'd pat the dog's head absently, still glued to that damn screen. I'd ask, everything okay? You seem off. He'd shrug, barely meeting my eyes. Work's busy, Em. That's all. Busy? He'd never been this checked out before, not even during overtime season. My gut started whispering something's wrong, but I ignored it. I didn't want to be that girl, the paranoid fiancée who couldn't let him breathe. The silence was the worst part. Our apartment used to be full of noise, me rambling about my day, him teasing me about burning dinner, Muffin barking at nothing. Now it was like a tomb. I try to fill it, chattering about random stuff, work, the weather, some funny thing Muffin did. But Ryan would just nod, half listening, his thumbs tapping away on his phone. Who was he texting? Luke? Jake? Someone else? I'd catch myself staring at him, wondering when he'd turned into this stranger. I'd ask again, softer this time. You sure you're okay? He'd sigh like I was the problem. I'm fine, Em. Chill. Chill. That word again. It was starting to feel like a slap. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to do something, anything, to pull us back together. So I planned a date night, the kind we used to love. I booked a table at this cute Japanese place downtown, dim lights, bamboo decor, the works. I dug out my favorite dress, this flowy red thing that always made me feel invincible, and spent an hour curling my hair just right. I even grabbed a bottle of sake, Ryan's favorite, the one he'd raved about on our first anniversary. We need this, I told myself, watching Muffin tilt his head at me from the couch. We just need a reset. I texted Ryan the plan, got a cool, see you there back, and let myself hope. Maybe this would fix us. Maybe he'd look at me across the table and remember why he'd proposed. But it didn't go like that. He showed up 10 minutes late, still in his work jeans, no effort. I'd pictured us laughing, clinking glasses, but he just slouched in his chair, fiddling with his chopsticks like a bored kid. I tried. I chattered about the menu, the sake, how cute the little soy sauce dishes were. He'd nod, poke at his sushi, say nothing. The air felt thick, heavy, like I was talking to a wall. I poured him some sake, smiling too hard. Remember when we got this on our anniversary? You said it was the best thing ever. He grunted, took a sip, didn't even look up. My chest tightened, but I kept going. So, I said, forcing cheer. I was thinking about the honeymoon. Maybe somewhere warm like Hawaii? We could. He cut me off, his voice sharp, sudden. I'm not sure I'm ready for this, Em. I froze, the miso soup in my hand trembling. What? I whispered, praying I'd misheard. He finally looked at me, but his eyes were hard, distant. This. The honeymoon, the wedding, all of it. I'm not sure. My spoon clattered against the bowl, nearly tipping it over. I stared at him, my throat closing up. What do you mean, all of it? My voice cracked louder than I meant. He shifted, uncomfortable, glancing around like he didn't want the other tables to hear. I don't know if I'm ready for marriage. For any of this. 5 years. A ring. A dog. A life. And he's not ready? I wanted to scream, to ask what the hell he'd been doing all this time. Was it me? Was it someone else? Luke, maybe? My mind raced, but my mouth wouldn't work. I just sat there, the sake turning sour in my stomach, the red dress feeling like a costume. The rest of the night was a blur. We paid the bill in silence, walked to the car without touching. I kept replaying his words. All of it. Like a broken record. When we got home, he went straight to the couch, phone out like nothing happened. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the sink, feeling the weight of it all crash down. This wasn't jitters. This wasn't a phase. This was him pulling away, piece by piece, and I'd been too blind or too stubborn to see it. But that night, something shifted in me too. I wasn't just hurt. I was pissed. And that anger? It was about to light a fire I didn't know I had. This wasn't over, not yet. That weekend after the disaster of a date night, Ryan took off to watch a football game with his buddies at some dive bar across town. He'd mumbled something about it earlier. Luke's got a big screen hookup, won't be late. And I didn't push. I was still reeling from his not sure about all of it line at the restaurant. My head a mess of hurt and hope. So I let him go, figured I'd stay home, curl up with Muffin, and drown my thoughts in some cheesy rom-com. I needed the distraction. Anything to keep from picking apart every word he'd said, every glance he hadn't given me. Muffin snuggled into my side on the couch, his warm little body the only thing keeping me grounded as the TV flickered. I kept telling myself he'll come around. He's just stressed. 5 years means something. But deep down, that whisper of doubt was getting louder. Around late afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was Sarah, my best friend since forever. The one who'd been there through every breakup, every meltdown. Am you okay? She asked, her voice tight, urgent. I sat up, Muffin grumbling as I shifted. Yeah, why? What's up? My stomach twisted. Sarah didn't sound like herself. She hesitated, then dropped it. I just heard something about Ryan. From the bar. My heart lurched. What do you mean, the bar? I pressed, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles went white. She sighed, reluctant. You should call Kevin. He was there. He'll tell you. Kevin, Ryan's coworker, the quiet one who'd always seemed decent, not like the rest of that loudmouth crew. Panic clawed at me, but I kept my voice steady. Okay. Thanks, Sarah. I hung up, hands shaking, and dialed Kevin before I could overthink it. He picked up on the second ring, sounding uneasy. Hey, I didn't waste time. Kevin, what happened at the bar? Sarah said something's up. There was a long pause, too long. Look, I didn't want to be the one to tell you, he started, his voice low. But it's messed up. You deserve to know. My pulse hammered in my ears. Just tell me. I snapped sharper than I meant. He sighed, then spilled it. The guys were watching the game, beers flowing, the usual chaos. Then it turned to wedding talk. Jake and Luke ribbing Ryan about tying the knot. Kevin said. Luke leaned in, smirking, and asked, You really ready to lock yourself down with one girl forever? Ryan laughed loud, careless, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard from him in months. Then he said it. If Emily looked like one of those Instagram hot girls, I'd have married her this morning. The table exploded, shouts, laughter, clinking bottles. Kevin didn't laugh, though. I just sat there, he told me. It wasn't right, Em. I'm sorry. The phone slipped in my hand, my breath catching like I'd been punched. 5 years. 5 years of love, fights, promises, and he turns me into a punchline? For Luke, for Jake, for a room full of strangers? My chest burned, my eyes stinging as Kevin's voice faded into static. You still there? He asked. I choked out a yeah thanks, and hung up, the room spinning. I stumbled to my car, didn't even grab my keys right the first time, and slid into the driver's seat. I didn't drive anywhere. I just sat there, the cold leather biting through my leggings, and cried. Not quiet tears either, ugly, heaving sobs that shook my whole body. 20 minutes, maybe more, I lost track. Muffin wasn't there to nudge me, Sarah wasn't there to hug me. It was just me, alone, breaking apart over a guy who'd taken everything I'd given him and laughed it off like a bad joke. He'd said it before on that couch. I'm not sure, but this was different. This was him stripping me down to nothing. My worth boiled down to some shallow Instagram-filtered fantasy. 5 years of late-night talks, of holding him when his dad got sick, of laughing over Muffin's dumb antics, all erased by a smirk and a cheap shot. I trusted him with everything, my heart, my future, my stupid, fragile hope, and he tossed it out for a laugh. I kept picturing it. Luke egging him on, Jake howling, Ryan grinning like he was king of the world. Did he even think about me? Did he care? When I finally dragged myself back inside, the apartment was dark, quiet. Then I heard it, the jingle of keys, the stumble of boots. Ryan was home, late and sloppy, reeking of beer and bar smoke. He didn't call out, didn't check on me. Just flopped onto the sofa, one leg dangling off, already half asleep. I stood in the doorway, staring at him. His face, soft, boyish, the one I'd loved so hard, was a stranger's now. My fists clenched, nails digging into my palms. I wanted to yell, to shake him awake, to demand why me, why this, why us? But my throat locked up. No words came. Just this hollow, aching rage. I turned, grabbed Muffin from the couch. Poor guy didn't even know what was happening, and marched to the bedroom. The door clicked shut behind me, the lock sliding into place with a finality that echoed in my bones. I sank onto the bed, Muffin curling into my lap, his warm fur soaking up the tears I couldn't stop. My chest felt like it had been carved open, every memory of us spilling out. Good ones, bad ones, all tainted now. That ring on my finger burned, a lie I'd worn too long. I slid it off, dropped it on the nightstand and watched it glint in the dark. 5 years, and this was where we landed? Him passed out, me locked away, our dog the only thing holding me together? I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, Muffin's breathing steady against my racing heart, replaying it all. The bar, the laugh, the words. She looked like a hot girl. It wasn't just humiliation, it was betrayal, sharp and deep. But through the tears, something else flickered. Anger. Not the loud, explosive kind, not yet. This was quieter, colder, stealing me from the inside. I wasn't going to let this break me. Not forever. Ryan could have his laughs, his Luke, his shallow little world. I was done shrinking for him. Done begging for a love he didn't even respect. That locked door wasn't just keeping him out. It was the first step to shutting him out of me. Morning would come, and with it, a choice. But right then, in the dark with Muffin, I let myself feel it all, the hurt, the fury, the tiny spark of something new. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something I couldn't see yet, something bigger. And trust me, it's about to get wild. Morning light slipped through the blinds, pale and unforgiving, when I woke up, or rather, gave up on pretending to sleep. Muffin was still curled against me. His soft snores the only sound in the room. My head pounded, eyes swollen from crying, and that locked door felt like a wall between me and the wreckage of last night. Ryan's words from the bar. If Emily looked like an Instagram hot girl, kept looping in my skull, sharp as broken glass. I'd spent the night replaying it, picking apart every laugh, every memory until I was raw. But I couldn't hide in here forever. Muffin nudged me, whining for his breakfast, and I dragged myself out of bed, stealing for whatever came next. The smell hit me first, eggs frying, coffee brewing. Ryan was in the kitchen, hunched over the stove, making his classic, I'm sorry breakfast. Sunny side-up eggs, a little burnt around the edges, and a mug of black coffee, just how I liked it. It was his move, every fight, every screw-up. He'd whip this out like a peace offering, and I'd always cave. He glanced up as I walked in, Muffin trotting behind me, and flashed a sheepish grin. Morning, Em. Figured we could use this. His voice was soft, coaxing like nothing happened. Like he hadn't humiliated me in front of his buddies and passed out on the couch while I fell apart. I stood there, arms crossed, the sight of him in that old flannel twisting something in my chest. Anger, yes, but also this stupid stubborn ache I couldn't shake. I didn't sit. Didn't touch the food. We need to talk, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. He froze, spatula midair. Then turned off the burner and faced me. About what? He asked like he didn't know. I took a breath, the words spilling out before I could stop them. The bar, Ryan. What you said. Kevin told me everything, how you laughed, how you said you'd marry me if I looked like some Instagram chick. 5 years, and that's what I am to you? A joke. His face drained of color, eyes darting away. It was nothing, he stammered. I was drunk, the guys were messing around. They pushed me to say something stupid, guy stuff, keeping face. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything? My hands shook, nails biting into my palms. You humiliated me, I said louder now. In front of everyone. And it's not just that. What about the wedding? You've been dodging it for months. Not sure. Not ready. Is that a joke too? Or is there something else? He went quiet, too quiet, staring at the floor like it'd save him. I stepped closer, voice trembling but firm. Tell me the truth, Ryan. Is it just pressure? Or is it me? He rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous tick I knew too well, then finally looked up. It's not you, he said, slow, like he was picking his words off a minefield. It's marriage. I'm scared, Scared I'll mess it up, turn into my dad. He walked out when I was a kid, left my mom, left us. I don't want to be that guy. His voice cracked, and for a second I saw the boy I'd loved. The one who'd opened up about his dad years ago, tears in his eyes. My anger faltered, caught off guard. Was this it? The root of all this distance, this coldness? I wanted to reach for him, to say we could figure it out, but something held me back. It didn't add up, not fully. So why not tell me? I asked. Why let it fester? Why take it out on me? He didn't answer, just stared at his untouched coffee, and that silence said more than words ever could. Before I could push further, my phone buzzed on the counter. I ignored it, but it buzzed again, insistent. Ryan nodded at it. You should get that. I grabbed it, annoyed, and saw the name. Linda, Ryan's mom. Weird. She never called out of the blue. Hey, Linda, I answered, stepping away from Ryan's guilty hunch. Her voice came through, shaky, thick with tears. Emily, honey, can we meet? There's a cafe near my place, the little one on Elm. I need to talk to you. My stomach dropped. Is everything okay? I asked. She sniffed. Just please come. It's about Ryan. I glanced at him. He was watching me now, brows furrowed, and told her I'd be there in 20. I hung up, grabbed my keys, and muttered, I'll be back. He didn't stop me, just nodded like he knew something I didn't. The cafe was quiet when I got there, just a few regulars sipping lattes. Linda was in the corner, her gray hair pulled back, eyes red-rimmed behind her glasses. She stood when she saw me, pulling me into a hug that felt more like an apology than a greeting. Oh, Emily, she whispered, and my heart sank deeper. We sat, and she gripped her coffee cup like a lifeline. He called me last night, she started, voice trembling. After the bar. He was a mess drunk, rambling. I've never heard him like that. I leaned in, pulse racing. What did he say? She took a shaky breath, tears spilling over. There's someone else, honey. A girl from work, Lynn, I think. He says he hasn't cheated, not physically, but he has feelings for her. It's tearing him up, and it's why he's been so lost about you. The world tilted. Lynn. A new coworker. My mind flashed to Luke, to those late nights, but this was worse. Feelings. I croaked, barely audible. Linda nodded, wiping her eyes. He told me he's confused, that he loves you but he's drawn to her. And it's making him question everything, the wedding, the future. He didn't have the guts to tell you, so I'm doing it. I won't let him hurt you like his father hurt me. Her words hit like a freight train. Ryan, my Ryan, with feelings for someone else? Not just a drunken slip, not just cold feet. This was a crack running straight through us, deeper than I'd imagined. I sat there numb, the cafe fading into a blur. Linda kept talking, apologies, pleas for me to protect myself, but I barely heard her. All I could see was him. The eggs, the excuses, the flannel I'd once loved. And now Lynn. I don't remember thanking Linda or leaving. I just drove. Aimless, windows down, the cold air stinging my face. 5 years and he'd been drifting toward someone else? Not an affair, he claimed. But what's the difference when his heart's already halfway out the door? The bar was bad enough, turning me into a punchline, but this? This was him rewriting our story, erasing me line by line. I pulled over somewhere, hands trembling on the wheel, and let it sink in. Fear of marriage, fear of his dad. I could have fought that, could have tried. But Lynn? That was a wall I couldn't climb. Back home, Ryan was still on the couch, coffee cold beside him. He looked up, eyes wary. What did Mom want? He asked like he didn't know. I stood there, staring at the man I'd loved so hard it hurt, and felt something snap. Lynn, I said, flat, final. His jaw tightened, guilt flooding his face, and that was all the confirmation I needed. This wasn't just a fight. This was the end, or the start of something I'd have to build alone. And I was ready. The next day came too fast, the weight of everything still pressing down on me like a bruise I couldn't stop poking. Ryan's confession, or lack of one, about Lynn, his mom's tearful warning, the cold coffee on the counter. It all swirled in my head, a storm I couldn't outrun. I barely slept, just lay there staring at the ceiling while Muffin snuffled beside me, blissfully unaware that our little world was crumbling. I kept seeing Ryan's face when I said her name, Lynn, how his jaw clenched, how he didn't deny it. 5 years, and I was competing with a ghost I didn't even know. I wanted to hate her, to paint her as some scheming homewrecker who'd swooped in and stolen him. It was easier that way, anger over heartbreak. But then my phone buzzed and everything flipped upside down. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. Hi, Emily. This is Lynn from Ryan's work. Can we talk? I owe you an explanation. My stomach lurched, fingers hovering over the screen. Lynn. Her. The one he'd been drawn to. The one tearing us apart, or so I'd thought. Every instinct screamed at me to delete it, to block her, to scream into the void instead of facing this. But something, curiosity maybe, or just plain exhaustion, stopped me. I typed back, fine. Where? Short and sharp, no room for warmth. She replied quick. A coffee shop downtown, neutral ground, in an hour. I agreed, though my insides churned. What was this? Some apology? A gloat? I didn't know, but I had to see her, had to put a face to the name that had haunted me since Linda's call. I got there early, jittery, clutching a latte I didn't drink. The place was busy. Clinking cups, chatter, the hiss of the espresso machine, but it all faded when she walked in. Lynn wasn't what I'd pictured. I'd built her up as this Instagram-perfect bombshell, tall, flawless, the kind of girl Ryan apparently wished I was. But she was normal. Pretty sure, dark hair and a messy bun, a soft smile, but not some untouchable goddess. She spotted me, waved awkwardly, and slid into the seat across from me. Thanks for coming, she said, voice steady but nervous. I know this is weird. Weird. That didn't even scratch the surface. I stared at her, arms crossed, waiting. Go ahead, I said flat. Explain. She took a breath, hands fidgeting with her cup. I didn't know Ryan liked me. Not like that. I swear, Emily, I had no idea until yesterday. My brows shot up, skepticism sharp. You didn't know? She shook her head, earnest. It's a mess and I'm so sorry you're caught in it. Luke, you know, the loud guy from work. He's the one who started it. He saw Ryan and me talking a lot, joking around, and turned it into this big thing. Said Ryan was into me, spread it around the crew. I thought it was just dumb gossip until Kevin told me what happened at the bar. I blinked, processing. Luke again. The same jackass who'd egged Ryan on that night. So you're saying it's all a rumor? I asked, voice tight. Not exactly, she admitted, and my heart sank. Ryan's been weird lately. Friendly, sure, we work together, we get along, but I never thought it was more. I've got a boyfriend, Emily. Have for 2 years. Ryan's just a coworker, maybe a friend, nothing else. I told Luke to shut it down, but he's an ass. Thought it was funny to hype it up. She paused, eyes searching mine. I don't know what's in Ryan's head, but I'm not part of it. I wouldn't do that to you or anyone. Her words hung there, raw, real. I wanted to call bullshit, to cling to my anger, but I couldn't. She wasn't lying. I could feel it, the way her voice shook, the way she didn't flinch under my glare. I leaned back, the latte cold in my hands. His mom said he has feelings for you, I said, testing her. Lynn's face fell, surprised. He told her that? I don't know what to say. If he does, it's news to me. Maybe he got caught up in Luke's crap, started believing it himself. But I've never given him anything to run with. Not a look, not a word. I swear. She leaned forward, urgent now. Emily, you don't deserve this. None of it. Not the bar, not this mess. You're worth more than some guy who'd let his buddies, or his own dumb head, make you feel less. Her words hit hard, unexpected, like a lifeline I didn't know I needed. I swallowed, throat tight. Why tell me this? I asked, softer now. She smiled, small but real. Because I've been where you are, doubting myself over someone else's screw-up. I don't want that for you. You should know the truth, whatever Ryan's too scared to say. I sat there, stunned. Lynn wasn't the enemy. She wasn't some siren luring him away. She was just a person caught in the same tangled web I was. Luke's loud mouth, Ryan's weakness, it all spun together into this nightmare, and she was trying to untangle it for me. Strange thing was, I believed her. Not just about the facts about me. You're worth more. 5 years with Ryan, and I'd forgotten that, shrunk myself to fit his doubts, his jokes, his drifting heart. Lynn didn't know me this, but she gave it anyway, and it cracked something open inside me. Not pain this time, but clarity. We talked a little more, small stuff, awkward at first. She told me about her boyfriend, a goofy mechanic who proposed last month. I mentioned Muffin, how he'd been my rock through this. It wasn't friendship, not yet, maybe never, but it was something human, something grounding. When we parted, she hugged me, quick and unsure, and said, "Don't let him or anyone make you doubt yourself, okay?" I nodded, too choked up to answer, and watched her go. The anger I'd carried in didn't vanish, but it shifted. Less at her, more at him, at the mess he'd let fester. Driving home, I replayed it all. Ryan's feelings weren't Lynn's fault. Maybe not even real, just some fantasy Luke planted and he ran with. But that didn't erase the hurt. He'd still laughed at me in that bar, still pulled away, still left me hanging while he wrestled his own demons, or his own delusions. Lynn's words echoed, "You're worth more." I'd been so busy chasing his approval, I'd lost sight of that. The ring was still off my finger, sitting on the nightstand like a relic, and for the first time I didn't want to put it back on. Not for him, not for us. When I walked in, Ryan was there, pacing, nervous. "Where'd you go?" he asked, eyes darting. I set my keys down, calm in a way that scared me. "Met Lynn," I said, watching his face pale. "She told me everything, Luke, the rumors, how you never made a move. But you still felt something, didn't you?" He opened his mouth, closed it, guilt written all over him. I cut him off. "Save it. I'm done guessing what's in your head." I grabbed Muffin's leash, clipped it on, and headed for the door. "I need air," I said, not looking back. He didn't follow. Outside, the cold bit my cheeks, but I felt lighter. Lynn didn't break us. Ryan did, with his silence, his cowardice, his wandering heart. And me? I was done bending. This wasn't over, not yet, but it was shifting. I had Muffin, I had me, and maybe, just maybe, I had a shot at something real. The road ahead was blurry, but it was mine. After that coffee shop talk with Lynn, I knew I couldn't just keep drifting in this limbo with Ryan. Her words, "You're worth more," stuck with me, rattling around in my head like a loose coin I couldn't ignore. 5 years with him and I'd been bending over backwards, excusing his distance, his doubts, his damn bar jokes, all because I thought love meant holding on no matter what. But love shouldn't feel like a cage or a punchline. I needed closure, not just for me, but for us, for whatever we'd been. So I called Rachel, Ryan's older sister, the no-nonsense one who'd always had my back, and asked her to set up a family meeting. "Everyone," I said. "Your mom, Ryan, and Luke. We're hashing this out once and for all." She didn't ask questions, just said, "Got it. My place tomorrow night." I hung up, my hand steady for the first time in weeks. The next evening, I walked into Rachel's house, Muffin's leash in one hand, my resolve in the other. The air was thick, tense, like everyone knew this wasn't just a casual dinner. Linda was there, perched on the couch, her eyes still puffy from our cafe talk. Ryan sat across from her, hunched, avoiding my gaze. Luke sprawled in an armchair, all cocky smirk and cheap cologne like he owned the room. Rachel stood by the kitchen, arms crossed, watching like a referee ready to call foul. I set Muffin down, he trotted off to sniff something, and took a deep breath. "Thanks for coming," I started, voice firm. "This ends tonight." I laid it all out, no holding back. The bar, Ryan's hot girl line, the laughter, the way it gutted me. Lynn, her side, how Luke spun a nothing friendship into a wrecking ball. The months of distance, the dodged wedding plans, the not sure that had been carving me hollow. I didn't yell, didn't cry. Just let the truth spill, raw and unfiltered. Luke jumped in first, predictable as ever. Come on, Em, it was a joke. Lighten up, guys talk shit when they're drunk. No big deal. His grin faltered when I shot him a look that could have melted steel. No big deal. I snapped. You turned my life into your punchline, Luke. And you? I turned to Ryan, who flinched. You let him. You laughed. Was that a joke too? He didn't answer right away, just stared at his hands, knuckles white. Linda broke the silence, voice soft but sharp. Tell her, Ryan. Tell her what you told me. He swallowed, finally meeting my eyes, and it all came tumbling out. It's not Lynn, he said slow, like he was pulling teeth. Not really. I got caught up, yeah, Luke's crap got in my head, but it's not her. It's me. I'm scared, scared of screwing up, of being a husband, a dad like my dad was. He failed us and I don't know if I can do this. His voice cracked and for a second, I saw the scared kid he'd buried under all that bravado. Linda's face crumpled, Rachel's jaw tightened, but I just stood there letting it sink in. Fear. That's what this was? 5 years and he'd rather run than fight it with me? I looked around the room, Linda's quiet tears, Luke's awkward shift, Rachel's steady gaze, and felt something settle. Okay. I said calm, final. Then we're done. The wedding's off. No one moved. No one argued. Ryan's head dropped. A faint nod, the only sign he'd heard. Luke opened his mouth, then shut it when Rachel glared. Linda reached for my hand, squeezing it, her eyes saying what her voice couldn't. I squeezed back, then grabbed Muffin's leash. I'll be out by the end of the week, I told Ryan and walked out, the door clicking shut behind me like a full stop. Packing up was surreal. That little apartment, our creaky floors, our mismatched mugs, Muffin's chew marks on the couch, felt like a museum of a life I didn't fit into anymore. I boxed my stuff, left Ryan's, and found a new place. A tiny studio across town, all bare walls and possibility. The wedding cancellation stung. Lost deposits, awkward calls to vendors, but I didn't care. Money's just money. What I'd lost was bigger, and what I'd gained was worth more. Ryan didn't fight me on it, didn't beg me to stay. He just watched me go silent like he'd already checked out long before I did. Now here I am, a week into this new life. Just me and Muffin in a space that's mine alone. It's quiet, too quiet sometimes, but it's mine. I've got a bed, a second-hand couch, and a view of a scrappy little courtyard I'm determined to green up. I've been trying to grow stuff, basil mostly because it's supposed to be easy. Spoiler, it's not. 3 pots in and they keep wilting, leaves drooping like they're as lost as I was. I laugh about it now, watering their sad little corpses, muttering, "Come on guys, we're figuring this out together." Muffin tilts his head at me, probably thinking I've lost it, but he sticks close, my furry shadow through all this chaos. I don't hate Ryan, not anymore. That fire's cooled into something softer, sadder. 5 years and I miss so much, the way he pulled back, the excuses I made for him, the signs I ignored because I wanted us too bad. I see it now, clear as day. He wasn't the villain, just a guy too scared to grow up, too weak to tell me until it broke us. Luke's an ass, sure, but Ryan let him in, let him fan the flames. And me? I let myself shrink, let his doubts define me. That's the part that stings most. Not losing him, but losing me along the way. But here's the thing. I'm finding her again, that Emily who laughed too loud, who didn't care what anyone thought. She's rusty, buried under years of compromise, but she's there. I catch glimpses in the mirror, in the way I dance around the studio with Muffin, in the basil I keep killing and replanting anyway. It's not perfect, nights get lonely and some days I still feel that ache, but it's real. I walk Muffin at dawn, the air crisp, the world quiet, and think this is mine. No ring, no shared lease, no one else's baggage, just me figuring it out. Canceling the wedding wasn't the end. It was the start. I lost a future I'd clung to, but I found something better. A chance to build one that fits. Ryan's out there, probably still wrestling his demons, and I hope he figures it out someday. But me? I'm done waiting. I've got Muffin, my dead plants, and a blank slate, and that's enough for now. Sometimes you've got to let go of what you thought you wanted to grab what you didn't know you needed. And trust me, this is just the beginning. Dewey de la Fancat fan 7, Kwa Ka Chuyen, Duak Viet Bang Ting on my Dewey Gok Ning Kwa Emily Harper, Teep Noi 2 fan 6, Hui Dam Koi Vahan Trensong Mot Min. V Benuka Nong Gon Twa Se Juno Koang 300 to 402. SEC Tich and Hung Van Trian Tai Kem Suk Vathong Deep Ket Tuk Tich Cuc. Dong Loi Kop Voi Fong Catch Nu Mot Loi Nen Nu Koi video. De la Fancat Ne. Part 7. Signing off. Conclusion. Word count. 350 words. So that's my story, messy, raw, and real. Thanks for sticking with me through it all. From that first laugh with Ryan at the party to the basil, I can't keep alive in my tiny studio. It's been a ride, 5 years of love, doubt, and a breakup that cracked me open, only to show me I could put myself back together. I'm not gonna lie, some days still sting, memories sneak up, and I wonder what might have been. But then I look at Muffin, at this little life I'm carving out, and I know I'm where I need to be. If any of you have been through something like this, loving someone who couldn't love you back the way you deserved, drop a comment. Tell me your story. It helps knowing we're not alone in the wreckage, right? I don't have all the answers, hell, I don't even know what tomorrow looks like. Will I figure out the basil thing? Will I trip into something new? No clue. But for the first time in a long time, I'm not scared of that. I'm living for me now, not for a ring, not for a plan, just for the messy, stubborn, loud-mouthed Emily I'm rediscovering. This isn't goodbye forever, just a see you later. I've got more to figure out, more plants to kill, more walks with Muffin to take. And maybe, just maybe, I'll pop back with another story, something lighter, something wilder. Who knows? Life's funny that way. So until then, take care of yourselves, okay? Hold on to what makes you you and don't let anyone, make you feel like less. Catch you in the next one.